Hello, hello, and welcome all to In Time. My name is Nicholas Lamar Soutter, and with me, as always, is Ansgar the Woo Odinson.
Good afternoon, everybody. The Woo this time, huh?
The Woo. It was gonna be either that or it was gonna be Ansgar show me the books Odinson. But I figured, you know what, we're moving on. So
How about Nick $400 Wooter? I don't know. It doesn't have quite the right
bad.
word.
That's not bad. That's not bad. It's not quite. It's not quite there, but it's close.
Yeah.
Oh well. Oh look, and my camera's actually working this time. Oh God, yesterday's show that's unwatchable. Holy smoke! I knew there were issues, but I was gonna.
Bad.
Yeah, I go like reset the whole system. It wasn't just my computer. I don't know. We're up and running. It's. Oh God.
Thanks, Obama.
All right. Well, it was Obama. I know. You know what it was? It was Obamacare. It was because of the way it's distributed. I ended up having to pay 900% more for bandwidth, and I wasn't able to choose my own provider.
Mm-hmm. That's what happens with socialism. Is the bandwidth got redistributed?
Yeah, exactly. Oh God. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. So, and I would like to, just as a reminder, we are a 100% Patreon funded. So if you like the show, give us, some super chats. That's always helpful. We do try to stay up with we don't want to make this unapproachable. We stay up with the chats. We really do. Sometimes they move fast. You want to make sure it's right, or you just want to support the show. Hit us up with super chats. You can also become a Patreon, and our Patreons, get to join us. There's all sorts of Patreon rewards. You get the little postcards. I gotta put the. I think we've been a little overrun, so we're behind on it. But those are some great postcards. Ansgar works his tail off to get really nice ones. So, and then you can also join us for the Patreon hangouts about. What is it? At the beginning of every month, first Monday of every month, and those are a lot of fun. And that's where we borrow many of our ideas for shows. So, come join us and just take a look at the Patreon. We'll get that dropped in the live chat at some point soon here. But until then, the other interesting piece of news, and this is something that we are announcing live for the first time. There's been some hubbub about it on our Discord, which you can also come in and join us and chat. But we are going to be launching a new show, aren't we?
Mm-hmm. We are. It's all going to be on this channel, but it is a show that will be featuring a mystery host.
Yeah,
So,
we got a
yeah.
we got a new host. It won't be us, but it will be here on this channel. And the name of the show is A Stitch in Time. Ooh, clever.
Ooh,
And
you're giving away a little more than I was going to give away.
oh,
Wow.
I probably should have been a little. You're
Wow.
right. That was probably. I'm not paying attention. I'm tired. I gave away, but we're gonna be doing that. We're very excited about it. It's gonna be a slightly different format. We're gonna be doing things a little differently on that show, but it's still gonna be very much a part of this brand, and we are really looking forward to it. It's gonna be a week from tomorrow, so I
Yes.
hope you will join us for that.
One of the benefits of this new show is if we have breaking news 4 or 5 times in the week and you want to catch up on everything that we covered, this show will allow you to catch up without having to watch 3 or 4 hour-long, 2-hour-long streams.
And there's going to be a lot more community engagement, and so
Yes.
if you want to come in, I think it's going to be in time, but it's going to be a little different, and we're really looking forward to it. Tony Designs wants to know, if we guess the host, what do we get? I said his name. Shoot, I'm tired. I'm tired, so I'm slipping. I'm slipping. I know. I said it. Well, no, it's only if I say it 3 times in a stream. So we're just gonna and we'll be okay. So I said it once though. Even it's like you're supposed to just not even acknowledge that. But it's a fair question. So we'll have to figure out what he gets.
Jedi mind tricked you. That's what I think happened.
He did. Well, he's Vulcan. I don't think that they can do the Jedi mind trick, but who the heck? He mind melded my ass or something. I don't know, but it's his fault. Him and Obama. What we're anyways, we're looking forward to it, and we're going to be discussing that and a whole bunch of stuff on the Discord. So come join us. And until then, we are going to be discussing today. We've got on a special guest. We're going to bring him out in a minute. We got on Godless Cranium, and we're going to be discussing Goop and Netflix. So what is that? Actually, maybe we should let him explain. I don't.
Yeah,
it's up to you. What do you want to do?
Yeah, well, let's bring in Godless Cranium and let him talk
Godless Cranium,
about.
why don't you come on out?
Thanks for having me on.
Oh, we're doing well.
We've actually, I really like your production value. It's pretty awesome on the show.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
They've only improved since you've gotten on, so thank you.
You do look very pretty in that little frame there. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I am looking my best right now.
So Goop. For people who don't know what Goop is, why don't you tell us what Goop is as an organization?
So it's a brand made by Gwyneth Paltrow that basically sells a bunch of like homeopathy, woo-ish type things, and I don't know how far you want me to go into it, but there's like I don't know, vaginal eggs, which are just like rocks or crystals or whatever that you put in your vagina. There's like massage stuff. There's like the normal lights and all that kind of stuff. But if you go on their website, you can go check out all of their woo-ish stuff. Some of which is like there's one about like I think she called it earthing, which is basically grounding. Where it supposedly cures or can stop. She doesn't say cures because she's been sued, so she's very careful with her language now. But basically, she's saying that if you do this thing, that it will like imply that it will cure or help your depression, which there's no evidence that it does. If you walk with bare feet, for example, isn't going to cure your depression. Like you need a professional for that. But
sounds like the claim that Christianity will cure depression. Not that I have any experience with people living that claim.
The vaginal eggs is an interesting one because that's where they actually got into legal trouble because they actually did claim that if you put these. They're basically they're just a egg-shaped stone, and they claimed that anything that was hormone related to the female reproductive system if you put this in your vagina overnight or something like that, that it would cure like all these different problems. It would normalize your period. It would stop what was it, your cramps, and there was a whole host of things that they claimed. They got in serious trouble over this. So that was, so they learned very quickly they had to change their language. And they do have articles. They don't just sell things. They have articles on their website about, very much wooish stuff, like, walking barefoot to cure depression. I think they may have been one of the people that was talking about, sunning your butthole, but I don't remember if that's true. But I know they've done, what was it? A vaginal, we're basically blowing smoke up your vagina. That was one of the ones that they had covered at some point. Yeah.
Well, and I forgot to mention earlier, one reason that the super chats are important is because we do have a tendency to get demonetized reasonably early in the show. Just saying. So if you want to support us, all right. So Gwyneth Paltrow starts this company. Yeah, I know. Well, they're turning it into a children's channel. We'll see what happens with that, but I ain't kidding. They just basically know it's. Well, that's everyone always. I tell them I'm in broadcasting on YouTube, and I say, "Are you making any money?" I'm like, "Well, I'm not making like 8 or 10-year-old money." I mean, those unpacking videos they make like $10 million. So I'm not making money like a 10-year-old, but I mean, I'm still doing all right. So Gwyneth Paltrow starts this company, and she's selling all sorts of stuff like this. Now, ostensibly, I assume it's because she believes in it. She's a proponent of it, and she's had some legal issues with claims that she's making, but she's going forward with it. What happens then? So I guess she gets something on Netflix. She goes on. Netflix decides that this is a big thing.
Yes. Well, her company is very successful, despite being sued. And I think she's been sued more than once, but it's not covered in the, like, I couldn't find anything about it, but she says in one article that I read that she was sued for more money, for like a substantial amount of money. And while the egg thing, she did get sued, but it wasn't like $1 million lawsuit. It was like, I think it was like she settled for like $200,000 or something, which to the rest of us is a lot of money.
145,000 was for the vaginal egg.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
145,000. So not much, really.
Right. It's not like much to her and her company, right? Like overall, like in the big scheme of things. So I think she's probably been sued and either settled before she got to court or whatever. But I think it's happened more than once, because she said one of the big lessons she learned was to be careful about what she's saying online. And I don't think the $145,000 bloody nose would be enough to do that. I think it would be substantially more. But yeah, so she's gotten this this Netflix thing, which is now, I think it's now on Netflix because I saw it on there. But I can't bring myself to watch it. But I probably should watch it, just for YouTube purposes. But yeah, so now she's like broadcasting to, I forget what I said in the video, how many subscribers Netflix has, but it's millions and millions of subscribers. They're the biggest streaming service for movies and stuff like that. So even with this Disney out, they're still bigger than Disney. So I don't know. It's pretty bad. Like if she's pushing that stuff to, vulnerable people that are just, hooking up their Netflix, then I don't know what Netflix is thinking. Well, I do know what Netflix is thinking. They're thinking money, but I wish that we sometimes put other priorities over financial priorities because that's pretty gross to kind of push that kind of shit. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on your show.
Oh yes, please.
Sorry. Fuck no! Don't ever fucking do it again.
Don't you fucking.
Okay, I know some shows are like really stringent about that stuff.
And maybe we should. We might want to classy it up, but frankly, you know what? The English language is limited enough as it is.
Graphics are classy enough. We gotta muck it up somehow. Well, the thing is this isn't just also a show on Netflix. Okay, there are two ways that shows can get on Netflix. Okay, I can produce a show. Let's say, let's say we get together and we make some sci-fi show, right? And we can see if Netflix would be willing to buy it and put, basically pay for the rights to play it on their air. Okay, that's very different. Then there's what's called a Netflix original. Now, these are shows that actually have their name on it. You know what I mean? It's Netflix original. Their brand is on it. Goop Lab isn't just a show that she produced. This is a Netflix original. This has Netflix logo on it. This has Netflix branding on it. This is, Netflix original presents Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop Lab. It's so there is an air of legitimacy that something like that sort of gives it. I watch let's say Ancient Aliens on Netflix all the time because it's funny, but it doesn't say, well, first of all, they don't also tell me to do something that could be potentially be dangerous. But it isn't Netflix presents Ancient Aliens, if that makes sense.
But
it's a slightly different.
But History Channel did something similar, right? Because I've met people that were like, well, Ancient Aliens was on the History Channel, so it must be real history. So it's kind of the same thing, a little bit different, but they lent their brand to, which has legitimacy in the public's mind, to Ancient Aliens, which is garbage. I've also watched Ancient Aliens, and I found it kind of entertaining, so I can see why they put it on there. But it's very misleading for the History Channel to do that. It should have been on like science fiction or something, because it's garbage.
No, I completely agree. Completely agree. So yeah, there is something to the brand legitimacy. I don't think I think Godless Cranium will probably be you'd probably differ with me, but I wouldn't have so much of a problem with it if this was just something she pitched and Netflix happened to pick it up. But this has their name on it, right?
They're actually paying for it. They're underwriting it. They're actually putting money into it. So instead of either licensing the show or paying for they are actually the producers, as I understand it. So they're responsible for the content in a way that might be somewhat different than if they're just buying the show. So The Mandalorian is an original series. That channel is actually producing the entire show. But there are plenty of shows that are, most shows that you see on ABC, CBS, they're purchased by, they're already in production, and they're actually licensed out by the station. So those are two different things. If something happens on that show, it's well accepted that the station didn't necessarily approve of it. It's not part of they're not speaking for the station, but this is produced by the station. They're actually, they're putting the money into it and developing it themselves. Yeah.
I also haven't seen,
is there a difference between the two?
I haven't seen the show, but I don't know if they put a warning on it either. So I don't know if they have like a warning that starts it off or anything like that says, hey, this isn't true. But I doubt it, because I would undermine the show, right? They'd be basically saying, don't watch this show to their audience. So I don't know how far that goes. But I think the more insidious thing is like
half an episode. I was going to say, I did watch half an episode, but the only warning I remember seeing was that it was TVMA. But anyways, please continue.
Oh, okay. No, I think the bigger issue though is that our kind of I don't know, our love for celebrities, right? Like I don't think Goop would go anywhere if it wasn't for Gwyneth Paltrow, right? Like Gwyneth Paltrow is the figurehead, and people buy it because she's pushing it. Now, if it was like Joe Blow off the street, I don't think Goop would go anywhere, because people would go, oh, that's garbage, I'm being sold nonsense, right? But because it's Gwyneth Paltrow, it's more believable, which is why like brands like Netflix and the History Channel also have that kind of power, but to a lesser degree than Gwyneth Paltrow, right? So it's really our love of celebrities that's the real root cause of that stuff, because we shouldn't be sucked in that easily. We should be able to say, like, look at it's very easy to find all kinds of scientists that are saying Gwyneth Paltrow is selling woo, and yet we discount them. A lot of people discount them and buy it because of Gwyneth Paltrow, which is just not cool.
Well, now wait a minute. Gwyneth Paltrow is a Academy Award-winning actress. Are you saying that does not qualify her as a medical expert?
I thought you were.
No, are you saying that here on our air?
Yes, I am. Yeah. She's
okay. If you want to take that kind of limb, you go right ahead. But she's got the Oscar.
I mean, she did say that that the sun can't have any non-positive effects because it's natural. So, like cancer.
Yes, that is a claim
can't
she
do
made.
that.
Yes.
And they do have a warning. They do have a warning, as I understand it, that this isn't actually medical advice. But I think there's a couple of different things, and there's Cesar Millan has a warning before every episode of The Dog Whisperer. Don't try these at home. But the implication is, if you watch enough of his show, you can learn to be a dog whisperer, and you can speak with the Mexican accent that he's got. And you can talk about giving your dog a majaz, and I've seen a couple episodes, so they've got the disclaimer, but I'm not sure that the disclaimer accurately reflects what is the content of the show.
I think that's basically legalese, right? To try to keep them away from getting sued for, I was gonna say malpractice, but it's not malpractice, but false advertising.
Okay. So the show's disclaimer says advises users to always consult a physician, and that the program exists to entertain and inform, not provide medical advice. So it's basically saying, I'm not advising you to walk barefoot to cure your depression, but you should walk barefoot to cure your depression.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they do have a warning then, at least, because it does say, like, basically it doesn't come right out and say this is woo, but if you're like in tuned with like figuring out what's woo and what isn't, then that would immediately set off red flags for you, right? Like, wait a second, this isn't medical advice, but you're telling me to do this to cure a medical condition, then that's a problem, right? That's a really big problem. And there's a lot of people out there that are very gullible and just like eat that stuff up, right? Like it's bad. I don't know.
Well, it's amazing because we tend to be in these different spheres online. It gives you the impression that most people are immune to this kind of thing because I don't know anybody in my online circle of friends that would buy this crap. You know what I mean? But in my regular everyday life, talking to people, you'd be surprised how many people. The way it was said with authority, and the argument seemed convincing to me. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean, I've met probably 60 people easy at different parties and things like that talked about ancient aliens as though it was true. And that is way more absurd sounding than some of the ways that Goop has framed certain medical, non-advice, we'll call it. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Well, and I certainly, I didn't buy the vaginal eggs. No.
Did you actually buy it?
I wouldn't know. Of course not. As you were saying.
Where were you intending on putting those eggs, Nick?
Intending? I had to experiment and try the product. I just didn't read the instructions, but there weren't any, so I was just I tried to figure it out, and it was an expensive trip to the ER, but you live and learn, right? These are life experiences. Godless will back me up on this. This is something like this. You gotta push forward and just move on. And it was, I was experimenting. Just, can we move on? Why is this show always about me?
I'm not backing anything that's coming into your mouth right now.
You're backing up, that's for sure. You're like, why did I come onto this show? Whose idea was this?
Put the egg down, Nick. Put the egg down. The reason why you don't know anybody, probably there's a lot of factors that go into why you wouldn't know somebody online that's like that, because you kind of draw people online that have similar mindsets to you, right? So I mean, you obviously get probably some people that follow you just out of hate or because they don't like you or they want to disagree with you. Because I do that too.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, the vast majority of people that follow you probably are people that are equally skeptical of claims like Goop. Right. But yeah, in the real world, it's a whole lot different. Right. And you also have a lot of people that have like, either mental illnesses or elderly or whatever that are more easily susceptible to being ripped off like that, right? So yeah, it's a problem. I don't know.
Also,
let me ask
undereducated communities are very vulnerable to this kind of thing.
Who? Sorry.
Well,
I was going to say undereducated communities that, particularly impoverished areas that don't have access to a lot of higher education, or have, high dropout rates and things like that, are very vulnerable to these kinds of claims and shows. I lived in an area where.
I was just gonna say maybe, but they also like for Ancient Aliens, yeah, I would agree. But for Goop, you'd have to have money to drop. Like she's marketing towards rich people, right? Like if you look at her, like I'm sure as you have looked at her site, like the stuff is not cheap, right? Like it's like I forget the vaginal eggs for like $70 or something for like a piece of rock, right?
$79.95.
$79.95. There you go. So I mean, and that's American. So yeah. So it's somewhere around there. It's very expensive. So she's marketing towards like middle class, upper middle class, or higher demographics, right?
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, one of the things is even with that kind of thing, right? For instance, I lived in a neighborhood where when our kid got cancer, people were telling us about all these different cures that we needed to try, and how the chemotherapy was going to harm him. It was all poison.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I would totally agree with that, because like I mean that now you're like if you ask a dying person or somebody that's like, it's kind of the same for anything, right? Like if you're poor and you're looking and you need a house, right? Like you would pay whatever you can in order to get the house, right? Like if you have cancer, you would pay whatever it takes to get to that thing, right? Even if you had to do something that was unscrupulous in order to get to that thing to cure it, and that makes total sense, right? Like I would do the same thing. But I mean, on a regular basis, like you're not dying or whatever, but you're just like you're hanging on by your fingernails kind of deal. It like you're barely getting by. They're not the target audience of Gwyneth Paltrow, although I'm sure there are some people that still do it. But
I would say Gwyneth Paltrow's target audience is probably more like the same kind of people who buy into anti-vax. They tend to be more middle and upper middle class.
Yes. Yeah, they have money to burn, and they're like, "Hey, what are we going to spend our money on? Let's go spend it on vaginal eggs, or whatever." Yeah.
Well, so let me ask you the cynical question. And it is maybe slightly askew from the topic, and a little, but just this is pure speculation. But thinking about this, do you think that? So we're talking essentially snake oil. Do you think that she's like aware or has an inkling that maybe it's snake oil, but it's okay because she's targeting people who or do you think she fully believes this, or is this just I mean, what let me rephrase that. What do you think's going through her mind with this?
I think she knows, because she says in one article where somebody was interviewing her about it. I think it was after she got sued, but she admitted that she is not qualified to do any of that stuff, and she didn't think that the brand would take off because she wasn't qualified. So I think on some level she knows. I don't know if she knows about everything. Like maybe there's like one or two products in there that she actually believes in, but I would think that she's been told by enough people and enough scientists that she's wrong, that it would have to sink in. Like there are so many scientists that have come out against all of her products and everything she says. So I wish we would pay those people more attention, the actual professionals in the field that know what they're talking about, than Gwyneth Paltrow. It's astounding to me that because she is a celebrity that she gets more weight in the public mind. yeah, then scientist who works in that field every day and studied at school every day, right? For just to address that kind of stuff, right? So, yeah. So I don't know. I don't know how much she knows, but I would assume that she at least is aware of the criticism, and she should know. So,
what do you think is the responsibility of Netflix in a case like this, where they have decided, that they're really going in with this? They are now supporting it, and they are pushing for it. Yeah. I mean, they're essentially creating almost an advertisement for this product, and they're getting paid for that. So they're not even doing it as they're not being paid as client. If you're an advertising company, heck, if you're a show and Coca-Cola wants to advertise on your channel, they pay you, and they can do the advertising. So, and usually you're supposed to be reasonably, as long as it's within brand, you try to just let people do advertise their own products. This isn't her advertising. This is them paying her to build what is essentially a huge advertisement for her products on their channel. Do they have an ethical responsibility as a corporation? Do you think in this regard, should they have said no? What are your thoughts?
yeah, I definitely think that they have an ethical responsibility not to put the show on. But in fact, I said so on Twitter, I believe, when I learned about the show, which is what made me make the video. But yeah, I definitely think so. I think I think a big part of it as well is that like the things that make us act ethically are kind of aligned against acting ethically. You know what I mean? Like, it's not in Netflix's best interest financially to not put the show on, right? That's what they think.
Yep.
So, I don't know I don't know what word it is I'm looking for, but there's like if you're at work, there's a lot of things that are aligned against you lying, right? Like there's things that tell you don't lie at work,
you're
right?
disincentivized against lying.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're not, right? All their incentives are saying, hey, put the show on because whatever. But we don't think about the human costs of that happening, right? So they've put up their legalese, and they'll be able to just say, well, we told them, in this disclaimer of 2-second disclaimer that a lot of people are just going to ignore. It was fine. I mean, who watches the federal thing that pops up every on your movie or whatever? Like, nobody, right? Like, you're just
Right.
like, oh, okay.
Well,
and that's not
actually,
go ahead.
It's a little bit like the lawyer who says to a client, he's like, now, I'm not advising you to launder money. I could never do that because that would be illegal. But I did see a movie, and this is how they laundered the money in the movie. And isn't that interesting?
Right. Yeah.
Don't know. I shouldn't have necessarily gone straight to the lawyer. But yeah, please.
Yeah. I was going to say, but the people who are inclined to believe this, in their mind, that they have to say that because of legal reasons, but that's just because they're not backed by big pharma,
or that what I was thinking was along those lines. They see that and they're worried about the outlier case. So if one product doesn't work as advertised, they're going to get sued and lose all their money because this is America and everybody sues everybody. So they just put that just to cover the rare exception, as opposed to what it's really there for, which is to cover the entire show and the entire product. I think is how
now, I want to ask you a real quick question, Godless. Let's say, for instance, that the show made no crazy claims, right? None at all. It was just a documentary on, I don't know, the inner workings of Goop, and it was a more personal biopic on the people there. Let's just say whatever. Would you have the same ethical reservations?
No. I mean, if it was like honestly outlining all the harm that Goop is doing, I would be in favor of that.
No, I mean, what if it was just a positive thing on Goop? It was a positive thing on Goop, but didn't cover any of their claims at all.
Oof. Yeah, I don't know, because it would depend on like what the substance of the movie was, right? Like, if it was like super positive and basically like saying, yeah, go buy these products, and no, I would still think that there's an ethical issue there. But if it's like an honest look at, and any honest look at that company would show that it's woo, then
Fair enough.
then I would be in favor of that, right? Like if they went and look, I mean, it took me, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours of reading to find all of the scientific studies and all the science people that were saying, hey, this stuff is garbage. So any show should be able to do a much better job than I could. So, I mean, they get paid a lot more to do it and have a lot more time to do it. So, yeah, I don't think any honest look at that show would be an unethical. It shouldn't amount to an unethical video. It should amount to, yeah, this is garbage and this is why, right? So.
Well, and the National Health Services, which is I believe that's the British system. The National Health Services has said their chief has warned that the Netflix show, quote, spreads misinformation and is a considerable health risk. Now they're talking about the show itself, not the products. They're talking about the show. So.
Right.
I guess this we can get into, and I don't know how or where we should. So just a couple of avenues to consider. Now, somebody had put up in the live chat, and I thought this was a good point. Well, gee, it's a capitalist society. They're not necessarily. I mean, and in fact, by U.S. law, the members of the corporation are actually beholden to make the stockholders money. So even if there's a choice. Well, hey, listen. This isn't my view. I wrote a book about this. Okay, this is going to get into my wheelhouse because I wrote an entire book on the rebuttal to. I wrote a novel. It was Rebuttal to Atlas Shrugged.
You're about to get us all branded with the SJW socialists.
Oh Jesus, I'll stay out of that. Okay.
Leninists or whatever. So.
Well, no. That's why we have guests. What we do is after the guest leaves, we blame the guest and say, "Jesus, who knew he felt that way?" Yeah. I know. I said it was okay to kick puppies, but he told me before the show started that I should say kick puppies, and that would segue into something he wanted to talk about. That was his weekend hobby. I don't know.
Who knew that he wanted to throw Gwyneth Paltrow in a gulag? I mean, come on. I mean, come on.
Yeah. All right. Go ahead. So let's just see if we can add to the libel and slander that you're committing here. You believe Gwyneth Paltrow is committing fraud. You believe that she is culpable in the product negligence. Okay, just kidding. That was a joke. To the FCC, that was a complete joke. That was Ansgar who said those things. So, at any rate,
hey! Don't make me put you in the gulag. I mean, don't make me throw you into the very capitalistic, privately owned prison system that is so great here in America because we are capitalists.
Somebody literally did the hashtag Nick still kicks puppies. What? I want to find the source of that hashtag. And okay, I'm okay. I'm not taking it personally. Mm-hmm. So we were saying, our system really has, unfortunately, in my view, but hey, I'm an SJW. What can you do? Okay, so we don't seem to have very many restrictions on what a corporation is legally can be legally liable for. In this case, the National Health Service is saying that this show is a considerable health risk. The show itself. This is one of the few times I've ever seen somebody accusing a show of being a health risk since our last night broadcast when we showed that website with all the Chinese characters. That one was yes, some people had seizures. We apologize. Other than that, they're accusing the show. So what do you think is there a way to hold a corporation responsible? Should they have just said no? Should they be sanctioned? What are your thoughts on this?
Oh, that's a hard one. There's so many issues there, right? Because then you have the free speech people or free speech things, who's gonna say what you can put on the air and what you can't. I mean, in a perfect world, we wouldn't have to really think about it too much because all of the incentives would be pointing towards Netflix not doing it, and they would just decide not to do it. I mean, do you really think, if networks thought that it's hard. Like sometimes, like when they put out those ads, like I don't say like Gillette, right? Do you really think that Gillette cares about the things that they're talking about in their ads? No, they're doing it because they think it'll make them money, right? And it'll get them eyeballs. And so all the incentives in that case are pointing towards them doing that, which a lot of people would think is positive, right? But overall,
I actually talked about this a little bit. What they do is they actually do some incredible market research where they say we want to generate just the right amount of controversy. We want a subject that's just controversial enough everyone will be talking about it, but won't make us universally hated. You know what I mean?
right.
And they did a good job.
And there's a lot of streaming services, right? So like other streaming services are probably watching Goop and they're thinking, well, if it works, then we'll start doing this, right? And so it creates like a chain reaction, kind of like, I don't know how many of those commercials there are, but I mean, I remember one that was like the Adidas commercial. Then there was the Gillette commercial, and then there was another commercial, and it all kind of like snowballs, right? And you end up having a bunch of companies doing essentially the same thing, maybe different topics. And there's nothing wrong with those ads. I'm not saying there is, but I'm saying it's the same phenomenon that you'll see with Goop. And right now, like because of Gwyneth, again, if it was just Joe Blow, Netflix wouldn't put that show on because Joe Blow doesn't have any celebrity power. So that's the problem. That's the root cause, right? That and our like worship of. No, I don't mean a literal worship for the watchers, but worshiping of celebrities, right? So you're gonna say, well, Godless Cranium.
Right.
Is using like religion in the wrong sense.
She's
So
got
how
an Oscar. How many times do I need to say she's got an Oscar? She's got an Oscar.
An Oscar winner, and she was in Avengers. So I mean, there's that too.
And I don't. She wore the suit. I think she should be qualified to make these kinds of decisions. I don't understand, but fine. I'm gonna call bias. I'm gonna call bias, and we'll go with that.
Yeah, I mean,
you say in a perfect world these things would be aligned. How would we even begin aligning those incentives?
Oh man, big question.
That's a good question. I'm glad he asked you and not me. That's all I have to say.
I don't know. Like we would have to. Like I think there's an issue. Like as a society or as societies, we often value what's entertaining over what's true, right? So even on say like YouTube, right? Like there are personalities on YouTube that just talk absolute nonsense and are like Odinson or whatever, or other people. There's lots of personalities that get a lot of views and a lot of money and a lot of sell a lot of products that have nothing to do with the truth, right? Like the truth is over here and they're over there, right? But yet because their personality is so good, that's what gets the things, right? As a society, we should try to value, I would hope, move towards valuing truth, trusting professional opinions more than celebrity Oscar winners, those kinds of things. Also, like, I don't know. I mean, like, you're right about the capitalist thing. Like, I don't know how you can fix that, right? In that kind of system where you're going to get, if the values of the community are that we want to see a shit show more than we want to see, I don't like what are those called? Those shows, the reality TV shows. A lot of them, I don't like a lot of them because they just kind of like they're basically making fun of like disadvantaged people, right? Like a lot of times, not all of them, but I mean some of them, and they do it by incentivizing you by like giving you money or whatever, right? To try to get you to do things that you wouldn't do without that incentive, right? So I can't watch those shows, but maybe that's because I work in social services, so I've seen a lot of people that are vulnerable and able to be taken advantage of in that way. So I don't know what the answer is. Like in the current system, I don't know how we would do it. You'd have to kind of like change the things that society values as well as the monetary way we do things. I don't know if you could do it through laws because I mean, like again, you get the free speech problem, which is an issue, right? Like I mean, should Gwyneth Paltrow be able to? Maybe you draw the line at a certain level, right? Like, is Gwyneth Paltrow allowed to tell her neighbor that vagina rocks would work? Yeah, okay. Should she be able to go on network television and do that? Probably not. I mean, it's not true, right? So
Right.
should be able to have those kinds of platforms. Should the platforms be allowed to platform that? Maybe not, right? I mean, maybe that's the issue.
Mhm.
Maybe that's the answer, right? But I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know if that's a
Well,
good answer
that
to
is
your
an
question.
interesting thing. It just strikes me. I think you hit on something. It strikes me very interesting. I'm very much for free speech is a very important thing for me. I mean, I've been rather vocal on the issue, but it does strike me that to call it a free speech issue does treat an organization, a large organization, as an individual. You know what I mean? Where we're
Yeah.
granting an individual liberty to a large organization. That almost seems to validate things like Citizens United.
Mm-hmm. Well, like things in like I don't know, in Canada we have laws against false advertising. I don't know if they do in the States. I'm
Yeah,
assuming
we
they
do.
would, but
Yeah.
but I think ours are like more stringent, I guess. Like they're more, it's very bad to do that here. Maybe those are like those kinds of laws are what should be put in place for platforms like Netflix or whatever, right? Like if something is not true, but then they're just going to sidestep that through the legalese that they put on because they already have that, right? That's
Yeah.
why they're putting that legalese up there. So I don't know, like should it
Yeah,
just be
it's
flat
a
out illegal
really
to put that stuff on there?
yeah, that's really
It's a real
interesting
problem.
because legalese really does bail a lot of people out of a lot of things that probably shouldn't, but the alternatives to it not bailing them out are rather significant. I don't. Wow. Hey, Dick, you
Well,
want to
and
weigh in on this one?
well, actually, what I was going to say is there are differences. I think corporations in general should not be seen as individuals. The Citizens United decision was catastrophic, I think, for a number of reasons. But that aside, one of the reasons that corporations tend to be exempt from a number of laws is because it's very hard to tell who made a specific decision because things are done often in groups, there's committees, there's however they plan to do it. So you might be able to hold the CEO responsible for individual things that he did, but if he was acting on behalf of the company and with the advice of other people, it's a lot harder to say, okay, when the corporation does something bad, it's necessarily his fault because you don't know. If it's a big thing, maybe you know he signed off on the decision. But if it's the result of a culmination of smaller things, it's very hard to identify if anybody actually understood that what they were doing was illegal or was going to result in harm in some way until you have someone who sees the bigger picture. So a corporation can do many things that are illegal, and this is you had this problem with Enron, where some people really did, and then you also actually had this problem not just with Enron, with a lot of the Wall Street companies during the 2008 collapse, where admittedly there were bankers who absolutely knew what was going on and should have gone to jail, but there were plenty who didn't and were contributing to the problem and thought that what they were doing was okay, and it really wasn't. So I do think there's that problem, but nonetheless, I think they can and should be held to a lot of the standards to libel, slander, and so on and so forth, to which they just ultimately aren't. But yes, we do have protections against false advertising. Now, we got a question. A troll in the live chat asked a
Oh,
question about candles. I don't know. Does somebody want to describe the
Oh
candles? Please don't
no.
put any pictures
Oh
up because
no.
I don't want to get demonetized, but I honestly don't know what they're talking about. I find it interesting that this troll happens to know about those candles. I don't know what he's talking about. Does somebody want to tell me about the Goop related candles? Just fill in our audience, and
I'll leave that
I
to you,
wouldn't
Ansgar.
know. Or
Oh, screw you. God damn it.
I
Okay.
think the ball's in your court. I don't. I'm ignorant on this one.
The balls are in your
Okay,
corner.
so
The balls are. Oh shoot! I just got this. But I think breaking news: you have been demonetized again. Shit.
well,
All right.
I'm blocking you both on all social media. Screw you guys. All right. So I'm not sure how this helps, but apparently in an effort to normalize feminine sex positivity, which I think is a good idea. I'm very normalizing sex positivity. I don't know how this helps. Gwyneth Paltrow is selling a candle for, I think it's what, $120 candle.
No, it's $149.95.
$149.90, $150 candle
I think
that
that's a guess. That's a guess.
is
Just
made
guessing.
to smell like her vagina. Now, my wife wanted to know. I don't know if any of you know. Does it smell like her
Please
vagina
don't
on
ask.
fire,
Don't ask.
or does it just smell like her vagina?
That's a really good question. I mean, if you light it, how would you do that experiment? How would you compare? I'm sure she wouldn't volunteer for this, but I'm just curious. It's like, okay, Gwyneth, we need to verify. So
Gwyneth Paltrow's vagina on fire.
God.
That is not our position.
Oh, wait. Oh, shoot. Hold on. YouTube. You have been served for indecent exposure. Okay. Yeah, YouTube. I keep getting this YouTube stuff. This is oh God.
Other angle though.
Yeah.
The other angle to the whole thing about the free speech thing is also like, so I think she banks on, and like as a YouTuber, I kind of struggle with this a lot too. But like, so she kind of banks on people like us, shows like this one or like videos, to like, because although it's negative, it points people towards her stuff, right? So that's another angle, right? Like, it's that there's so many scientists saying this is bad, so then people like read this, what the scientists say, let's go check it out and see what they're saying is really bad. Now they're hooked on Goop and whatever. So I don't know how, like, does the negative exposure harm her or does it help her, right? So and I guess in each case it would be different, but I think in Gwyneth Paltrow's it might actually be helping her because in some ways she kind of banks on it, right? Like I think she kind of courts it.
So are you suggesting then that people who go on to public media, social media, maybe YouTube channels, and start talking about this to unwitting hosts and start talking about this kind of thing, that those people should be culpable in somehow?
I don't think that they should be culpable, but no. But
oh, you're thinking so you're thinking they should be liable. So you're thinking that financially they should pay a heavy penalty. So you're not talking jail time. You're just talking heavy penalties.
Because he's a Marxist. It's because he's a Marxist.
Yeah. I hope nobody drops your real name, down and drops it off to the FCC or anything like that.
Yeah, like just like they should be breaking rocks in a yard for years to come.
Okay, good. So I have a feeling after this he's gonna go on Twitter and goes, never go on in time. Just take my advice. Stay off the channel. I don't think I'm doing us any favor. Okay.
One of the things I've actually really enjoyed, I don't know if you guys watch it or listen to it, is Star Talk. And I really dig that that Neil deGrasse Tyson is making a concerted effort to try and almost celebritize science. You know what I mean? Like he really, really wants, and I don't know that he'll ever be successful, but I think this is part of what we were kind of talking about, the right incentives and getting society to value the right things. I think that that's kind of what Neil Tyson has been trying to do for some time, but it doesn't seem to really be picking up that much steam, unfortunately.
Well, it has in some ways, right? Like, I mean, 1 second. It has in some ways because like Neil Tyson wasn't nearly the first one, right? I mean, there's Carl Sagan, who is a great science communicator, and he definitely had a big impact on how people think about science and how trustworthy it is. There's Stephen Hawking, who also did a great job. There's quite a few now that are like smaller people, like Sean Carroll, who I really like, and he has a podcast as well, which is great. And so there's like lots of them. We need more of them. We need more people that can talk science and make it understood to people like me, like the regular person on the street. Because when they start talking, it's kind of like listening to shop talk, right? Like when my dad, for example, was very good at numbers and mechanics and stuff. So if he explained it in his terms, I wouldn't understand what he's talking about. I could just pretend that I understood. But he could also shift gears and explain it in a way that I could understand, right? And I think that's very valuable, and we need more people doing that, and that are scientists. Even like just smaller YouTubers, or people on YouTube, like I don't know, like Scientist Mel, or people like that can talk science and do it in an understood way, right? Interesting and understood, because you have to, like I said, it has to be entertaining as well, right? Like there's, I could say all of the truth and just say it in a monotone, which I kind of do, monotone way, and it's probably going to get less views than somebody else that doesn't do that, right? So I think there's like more than one component there. We're crazy. Humans are crazy, right? Like we value things for weird reasons. I don't know why.
Well, I will say this. So just real quick. So like a baseball player, a good Major League Baseball player, the top baseball players will be earning 21 million a season, but the top scientists in the world who are curing cancer, maybe 200,000 a year tops. That's a interesting difference to me.
Well, I mean, if you could fill a stadium, okay, here's the thing: if you could fill a stadium to watch somebody, stare at a beaker for an hour and a half, then they'd probably be getting paid that much. But unfortunately, nobody's going to stand and cheer and do the wave every single time they, dip an eyedropper in a beaker. It's just, it's unfortunate.
But that's the incentive thing, right? That's the incentive part. That's why the system incentivizes, somebody that can hit a ball should make more than the doctor that cures people, or the teacher that teaches 30 kids a year, or the social worker that helps homeless people every day of the year, or any of those. Like all of those people, I think, should be making way more than dude that can hit a ball, right? or whatever, or kick a ball into a net.
We are drawn to spectacle. We just are. It's unfortunate, but we're drawn to spectacle.
Yeah, I mean, and there's like, I don't know, I've never been a big sports person, so I don't like, to me it's like sports are kind of weird to me, because I'm like, why would I care about what that person can do when they don't care about me? I have no impact on the outcome of what's going to happen. And they don't know I exist, so I'm just cheering for no apparent, and I get, like, I'm not putting people down that like that kind of stuff. I mean, if that's your jam, that's cool. But for me, it's not my jam. I would rather see more, like I said, more doctors, teachers, social workers, nurses, all those kinds of people making more money than baseball players and soccer players. It's just, to me, they provide a way more valuable service to society than any of those other people. So I don't know, maybe that's just me. I'm just crazy socialist or something.
Well, no, I'm glad. So we're gonna add socialist. So we got socialist, SJW, you've committed slander now. You've done the whole.
Somebody will take this and cut it up. They'll just cut it up. And
yeah.
Like, Godless Cranium admits he's a socialist. He's SJW.
Well, before we go forward, I just want to find out if we have any liability. If we got liability for airing you, then we stand by you. I mean, dude, we wouldn't throw you under the bus. Right. If not, hey, dude, look what he did. But at any rate, because spectacle. It's what the market will bear, and I think the way the market is developed, it's okay. It's sort of happened organically, and that's great. But this notion that the free hand of the market is always right is, as in my view, is as sort of faith-based,
kind of almost religious. To be honest, I was going to say it's almost religious. It's like the free market is the deity,
Yep. This invisible hand is basically
especially
always
in
right.
America.
It's insane.
Especially in America, where it's like you talk about anything. Like, I mean, look at like Bernie Sanders is getting nailed as a communist, and he's not, right? So, I mean, it's just anytime you talk, like, I don't know how many like videos, like when I did my inequality video, immediately I got fuck off commie in the comments or whatever, and I'd said nothing about communism. Right, like nothing whatsoever.
I'm sorry.
And I've actually made videos against communism. Right. But I remember like reading a thing. I think it was like Peter Singer was doing a thing about how like wouldn't it be great if we like. So say you bought a painting for $450 million, right? Like that would get written up in the paper and it'd be like, look at Ansgar just bought this amazing painting and look at that, right? And he was saying basically like, that's disgusting. Like why are we incentivizing that? Like we should be incentivizing like, hey, $450 million, I just gave $450 million to charity. That's great. Like put that in the paper, right? Forget about the painting, right? Like why are we incentivizing, a piece of canvas with some paint on it being worth $450 million while people are starving in the streets, right? Like that kind of stuff makes sense to me, right? Like, why are we doing that? That just, I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, maybe I'm completely on left field, but that doesn't make sense to me.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm not going to discount the fact that you're crazy. It's still a possibility. But there is one other thing, which is that part of this is I think a failure in marketing. So if you were to take some of the just the regular tactics that sort of go without saying in some of these areas and like entertainment and even Goop. Let's take Goop for example. Okay, if scientists started making their beakers shaped like Gwyneth Paltrow's vagina, and if they made the sense of you walk into the lab and it smell, I'm throwing that out there. I'm thinking that you need to think outside the box.
Can we just throw that idea out just entirely?
Why? I think that's good.
Okay. So
now,
before,
if it looked like my penis, maybe, I don't know. But...
Ooh, now that I might buy.
Well, shots fired. Okay, all right. This show is okay.
Okay.
So
I want to get into some.
Hold on. We've been approved.
Yeah.
We are now monetized on Pornhub. Thank you for that. So, anyways, we're saying.
I wanted to get into some of the products that they offer to show that give people kind of an idea of some of the things that you have to understand, like the Goop Netflix thing. Even if they made none of their claims, which apparently which obviously they are making crazy claims on their show, but even if they weren't, that show is going to direct people to their website where they're selling stuff. As an example, they have chocolates that supposedly. Do you know what nootropics are? Are you familiar with nootropics? Okay.
No.
Nootropics is a new fad thing that if you take these certain, ordinary things like, let's say, caffeine and thiamine and things like that it'll give your brain a boost and it'll work so much better. You know what I mean? And there's different ones you can take to boost different kinds of cognitive abilities and stuff like that. So that's some of the stuff that they're selling. So you can buy $55 chocolates that supposedly are going to boost your brain. You can buy a water bottle that has an ordinary piece of amethyst in it. Now, what this is supposed to do is that it is supposed to infuse the water with the energies of the crystal, and it's supposed to boost your intuition. Now, I will point out that the people who believe in crystals, that have the crystals having these kind of powers, they believe that amethyst has its own property and quartz has its own property. They're the same stone. Amethyst is just purple quartz. They're the same exact stone. So if you're telling me that a little bit of coloration completely changes the spiritual resonance of the frickin' stone, I'm going to tell you that doesn't make any goddamn sense. But yes, and this bottle is going to cost you $85 for a water bottle.
I'm reading
with a rock.
I'm reading Ansgar's aura right now, and it looks very, very angry. Just saying.
Yeah, he's triggered. He's triggered. Yeah. I don't know if I'm trying to figure out whether that happened before or after the candles, the beads, or the. There's a lot here that could have done it. It's tough to tell.
Fact, you can buy the clear quartz one for $80, and it will let's see. it's a blank slate for storing energies for things like meditation. Yes, so a completely different property because it's colored differently. Fuck off.
It's weird.
Yeah.
I just wanted to. I wanted to.
They're selling.
I saw somebody in your chat when I was just kind of like glancing at it, and it said that they think that entertainment has value. And yeah, I agree with you. I don't think that like actresses or actors or like sports people should get paid nothing, but I don't think that they should be getting paid $21 million. So it's like, you know, I think it's like a balancing act. And I'd rather see that money go towards things that actually matter, like people's health and stuff like that, like things that matter more, I guess. Not actually matter, because that makes it sound like the entertainment doesn't matter, but it does. I mean, I like video games, I like watching TV, I like watching movies and stuff like that, and yeah, that stuff does have value. But I do think that there's, you know, there should be a limit, right, to how much we value that compared to other things that also have value that should be valued. I think should be valued more, if that makes sense. So.
Well, and as a corollary to that as well, it's not just about the value, which I think there is. We need entertainment, and we are lucky that we live in an area where we can be entertained, or in an era where we can, as opposed to 200 years ago, where it's a lot harder to entertain yourself because you were too busy trying to survive, even just as a. But
and you actually had to go outside, so to be,
yeah, which I don't. Yeah. Oh, I stay away from all that. There's something called pollen, and. But
yeah.
the other thing is that when somebody is a successful entertainer, it somehow seems to trick our minds into thinking that they're credible in all fields. It's we have this sort of, we're actually hardwired to follow symbols, to follow any kind of leadership symbol. We are hardwired to do that. Now, when somebody goes on television and you see them flying around in an Iron Man suit, anything like that, all of a sudden you say that person is qualified to speak on astrophysics. Your brain actually roughly makes that connection. I mean, it basically says, I will trust whatever he says. Whatever he says is right. So if he comes out and says, well, astrophysics is this, like, wow, Robert Downey Jr. is an astrophysicist? I had no idea. No, he just read that in the paper yesterday. But we just become enamored with these kinds of things. And so I agree, Godless, that's extraordinarily important, probably even more important than what I'm getting into. But I think there's that other side, and that relates to what's happening here, where Gwyneth Paltrow has an Oscar. She's been on TV, and she's been very persuasive as an actress. And so we sit there and say, okay, when she opens her mouth, she must know what she's doing. Nobody would worship her if she didn't know what she was doing. No, we quote worship her because we like what she does on TV. It doesn't mean she's president of the United States and is qualified to. Sorry, I didn't mean to insult Gwyneth Paltrow like that, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Imagine
if she used that star power to actually promote people that did know what they were talking about, right?
Yeah.
Maybe she says, hey, you know, Stephen Hawking or whoever, or, you know, Sean Carroll, why don't you, I'll host a show and I'll put my name on there and try to promote it and those kinds of things. And I'd be like in favor of that, right? Even though she'd be using the same star power to do something else. That I wish that humans didn't think like that, right? Like I wish we were like, hey, Gwyneth Paltrow's opinion should matter just as much as, you know, person B who has the same equivalent amount of education and stuff. But that's not how the real world seems to work. So, you know, there are people that put their star power in order to like promote things that are good, right? But Gwyneth Paltrow isn't one of those. So she's doing immeasurable harm as that, you know, whatever the FCC or whatever put out. And, you know, that's
the NHS, the director of the NHS. Yeah.
Yeah, director of the NHS.
I would also like to say that we do seem to have a bias in our minds. At least a lot of people do, that you know, they wouldn't allow this if it was harmful. You know what I mean? We put an unfair amount of trust in our institutions, in even the channel, in our news organizations, and I think you know. There's a lot of particular circles that are becoming very, very jaded to those kinds of things. But there's still a lot of people who put an extraordinary amount of trust that just assume, oh, well, they wouldn't put this on here if it wasn't true, you know?
Well, we have an extraordinary amount of biases, right? That we're not a lot of times we're not even aware of, which is why we should be making ourselves aware of those biases so that we can counter them, right? Like, for example, I probably have this bias, right? Like when somebody's talking in a British accent, it seems more credible to me, right? Like it shouldn't. There's no reason in the world why a British accent should mean that that person's more qualified than person that has an American accent or a Canadian accent, right? Like, so there's all kinds of things that we do that are just like that, right?
Absolutely. All right. So, do you have anything you'd like to? Oh, go ahead, Nick.
Oh no, I was about to
All
wrap
right.
it up. So
Yeah, I was going to say, do you have anything that you'd like to talk about? Where people can find you? We've put links to all your social media and your YouTube in the description. But got anything coming up you want to tell people about, or anything like that?
Not really. I'm working on the next Cycles of Fascism, which is a playlist that I'm working with Cyrus on. Cyrus the Skeptic. He's doing modern forms of fascism, and I'm doing more historical that kind of link with modern ones that you can see now in today's societies, including America. So I'm excited about that project, and I'm continuing to work on that. So yeah, that's the only thing that I have that's kind of paramount. I'm very much like I get distracted very easily. So sometimes I'll be working on that, and then I'll see something in the news like this Gwyneth Paltrow thing or whatever. Just say it just happened, and I'll be like, squirrel, and then I'll go do that. So I don't know. That's just how I work. But and then
vagina candle.
Yeah, right. And then the audience will be like, I thought he was going to put out the Cycles of Fascism video, but no, that might not happen. But it will happen at some point.
Okay.
So that's the thing I'm working on right now.
Cool. And Godless Cranium did do a video on the whole Goop Netflix thing as well. He addressed it, so go check out his channel. Check that out. Follow him on social media. Those links are in the description. And was there anything else you wanted to say before we close out, Nick?
Just a reminder to everyone that tomorrow we're going to be doing To the Stars with Red's Rhetoric, and he's going to be on. He's going to be talking about sort of our future in space, why the rocketry programs, NASA, stuff like that is important, and what it's contributed to human society. And so we hope you will join us for that. We're looking forward to that, and we will see you all tomorrow.
See ya.